it's me, Samba, and today I'm here with Blzkn.
Yo.
And today we're talking about our top 5 fights in Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole.
Okay, so at number 5 for me, I'm a little undecided. So I have between two fights, and I'm just gonna say both of them, and then we'll move on with this. So it's between Yuta versus Sendai Colony, so his free-for-all against Ryu, Kuroshi, and Uru, or Hikari versus Kashimo at number 5. So the reason I like both of these fights is, Hikari versus Kashimo, in my opinion, is arguably the best 1v1 fight we've seen in JJK. I feel like the intelligence of both fighters were elite, and they both gave us so much unpredictability, and I felt like both people were hyped up and delivered on the hype in their eventual fight. But Yuta versus Sendai, I think it was crazy. I mean, the fight was completely unpredictable. We got a tease domain expansion. We got to see finally Yuta's curse technique and mimicry, and we got to see Rika for the first time after the prologue. So I felt as if there was a lot of things, and meeting two like elite level ancient sorcerers, it was just a great fight, which I enjoyed both of them. But I'm undecided which one I prefer, so that's why I got them both at number 5.
For my number 5, I think I got Mahito versus Makamoru. It's a fight I don't really see many people talking about, and I think that's because it's right before Shibuya, which is very fair. Right before the fight, we see Geto talking about the binding vow, something we've heard a lot about in the series previous to this fight, and he talks about the extreme consequences that you can get if you break the vows, which I think will be very important later on in the series. In terms of the fight itself, it's always a joy to see Mekamaru fight because he's just a robot that be sending out these massive ass beams. And Mahito is honestly one of my favourite villains in Jujutsu Kaisen, so seeing him fight is always a spectacle. Because he's able to transfigure his body and turn it into weapons like we saw in the Yuji and Nanami fight.
Extermination.
Yeah. We saw him back out the blades. The premise of his ability is just amazing. Honestly, at some point I really did think Mekamaru was going to win the fight, just because of how strong he was portrayed to be, but in the end Mahito won. I was sad to see it, but again, I am pretty biased towards Mahito, so it is what it is at that point.
Alright, at number 4, I got Yuji versus Choso. So I think this is probably one of the best fights choreography-wise. I believe the panels in the bathroom scenes were some of the best art style, and it kind of highlighted the gritty nature of Jujutsu Kaisen and the gritty art style that obviously Gege has. But this fight was a back and forth, and this was really the first time we got to see blood manipulation used to a higher level. We obviously saw it with Kamo, but him having to use blood packets, you can't really see it to the extravagant use that Choso did in this fight. More than just the fight itself, it had big narrative implications where we find out that Choso and Yuji are related due to Kenjaku and him doing a madness. But regardless of that, it tied in nicely with the very first fight with Yuji and the death paintings back in the fight with Nobara. Well, Choso and Yuji are now further going to team up to stop Kenjaku. But going back to the fight was insane. The Yuji showed so much creativity to be able to get to a point to fight against such a dangerous technique such as blood manipulation. And the different versatility in the techniques Choso used just showed why blood manipulation is one of the strongest techniques used with a death painting such as Choso.
Alright, next I got Megumi versus Reggie. So this was one of the first fights in the Cullen games, I think. Am I wrong?
Second fight, yeah.
Yeah. And there was a slight time skip after the whole Shibuya incident. And in this, we got to see Megumi's, the fruits of his labor and his training. We first saw him, I think he dipped into the shadows and just straight up murked someone, which was something we haven't seen, before.
Yeah, bro.
It was at that point where I realised, I need to see him fight someone. I need to see him display his strength. And I think Reggie was the perfect character for him to show his powers, how he's grown as a Jujutsu sorcerer as well. In this fight, we got to see his domain expansion, though I think it's still incomplete, so it doesn't have a sure hit. But we still got to see him use it and bring it further into fruition after his fight with the Finger Bearer. How did the fight end again?
What, Megumi versus Reggie?
Yeah, he slapped an elephant on him or something, right?
Nah, so after that, he drops the elephant. Then Reggie uses his receipts to pull back the house, so then he rises back. So then they get to the part where they're so obviously the gymnasium breaks.
Right.
So then they're at the bottom, and then they have their fight, hand-to-hand combat, and then my man gets a divine dog and slaps up his it was peak. It was peak.
That fight, this is definitely up there for Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah.
100%.
What you got next?
Nah, even before that, just to build on that, bro.
Yeah.
Megumi's the only one who currently has a body in the current game, so yeah, he
You're
was
right.
on
Yeah, you're
business.
right. That we've seen
Like,
at least. Yeah.
it was crazy.
Loki
It was
wasn't
crazy.
expecting it, but I'm glad to see
100,
that like
100,
you know
bro.
he's not afraid to kill people like for his
Yeah, man.
eyes. Like, to see
Yeah,
his
bro.
sister. It's nice to see.
100%. I mean, like you said, there's obviously some comparisons between the trio and the previous trio, and he gives the most Gojo vibes. So it just felt like, it was more evident of him kind of showing more growth in his character.
Yeah.
So 100.
Yeah.
But
Okay, respect.
her number 3 for me is, well, arguably the best fight in Jujutsu Kaisen. I think narratively is the best as well, but is Yuji and Todo versus Mahito.
I can definitely
So
respect this. Yeah.
yes, so obviously we know as the audience, Mahito's conclusion was one of the best, and I feel like it was ironic with how he was playing with everybody and then ended up getting toyed with by Kenjaku in the end with
Yeah.
the obviously maximum technique. But I think the fight it had the highest highs with freaking Yuji breaking down. You had Nanami getting packed up. You had Nobara getting packed up. It had the point where us as the audience, we got to a point where like, what the fuck? This guy Mahito is a dickhead. And then you got Todo's introduction, which I think was one of the best introductions, obviously. And it kind of restored us as the reader, the faith that we had during the fight. And I think, listen, it had some of the craziest moments. I think Mahito using Black Flash was something I was never going to expect. And it just,
crazy.
Bro, that was insane.
That was
insane. And I think, like you said, with the whole fight, showing the parallels between Yuji and our antagonist and Mahito, it highlighted the fact with his kind of dramatic as well during the fight. So I thought, listen, it was best narrative fight that we've got so far, JJK bar the Higuruma and Yuji fight. And it got some of the best moments that we've seen. And unfortunately, rest in peace, my man, Nanami, and RP Boogie Woogie. So, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, man.
I got that fight at 3 as well. So about
okay,
what you said. I definitely agree with what you said. Narrative wise, I definitely think it's one of the greatest fights. The symbolism of the hunter versus the hunted, the roles being
100%.
flipped, the whole thing of Yuji being a cog in the system, killing curses, and the whole thing of Mahito being a curse that kills people. And it's in this fight that we truly got to see Yuji's resolve. And the thing is, this was built up beautifully. Like, this was so early on in the series with Junpei, where Yuji's hatred for Mahito stemmed from. And I believe
100%.
in that fight is where Yuji says, I'm going to kill you rather than I'm going to exercise you as you should be exercising as a Jujutsu sorcerer. But 100%. Like the whole distorted body of killing shit like that. It was a great fight, narratively and like both art wise and stuff.
Completely. And I think like you said, at that moment of time, what I think Gege has done well is he's concluded with villains at the right time. Like Mahito didn't overstay his welcome. It was a perfect time for his story to be done. It's kind of like, even though someone we're going to briefly talk about, Toji, like his story has perfectly coincided and ended when it has. So it was a nice way to end up with Mahito, who obviously couldn't continue. I mean, all the disaster curses got packed up in one arc. It's crazy.
Rip Joker got sold.
Yep. It was tough. But talking about the person who packed up Jogo, that moves on nicely to my number 2, and that's Sakuna versus Muhuraga. I'm gonna put slash Jogo as well, because listen, they were both back to back him just slapping up people. So I mean, at this moment of time, we knew Sakuna was strong, but we didn't know how strong Sakuna was. So the fact that we saw 15 Finger Sakuna basically not even try against these people and completely slapped up 2 of the strongest, obviously, opponents that we've seen in the series, I feel like it just kind of heightened up to why we as the audience want to eventually see Sakuna and Gojo go all out in that final battle. I mean, like, when he was just using the domain expansion and then the flame straight after, and then the switch to then bring back Yuji to let him see everything that happened, I think it further highlight that this is no Kurama and Naruto, in case anyone thought.
He actually hates this man,
100%.
There's no redemption.
Exactly. And listen, I feel like it also keeps the anticipation of Yuji as a character even more, because him being a cog is an interesting plotline. But the fact that he has this walking time bomb with him, it just makes why every Sakuna appearance heightened to even more. And I think it was done nicely in this fight.
Yeah.
I feel like I was rambling, so you can take some of that off. But
I agree. I wanted just more expanding like the whole Muhuraga thing. So obviously in that fight we got to see that, because before it was like heavily implied that, you know, Sukuna was very interested in Megumi, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like this fight completely cemented that in the fact that he killed Muhuraga for the sole purpose of saving Megumi. So we already know that like he has a very large amount of importance to the story, and with Sukuna, that will definitely be built upon, and it will 100% be a very crucial plot point towards the end game of the series.
100%.
But as for the whole Muhuraga fight itself, the whole concept of it being a cursed bearer that is constantly adapting to cursed techniques, cursed energy, stuff like that.
Bro,
it's actually insane. It had like broken our sword as well.
Yeah,
like,
sword of extermination.
Yeah, just instantly clapped off like other cursed mirrors, which is crazy.
I think, listen, the potential for if Megumi can actually tame Muhuraga is actually scary. Because the thing is, there's one thing that we as an audience don't know at this moment in time. If everything that he, for example, because if Megumi actually has him, so he won't be dying like he did against Sukuna, does that mean he can keep all the things that he's adapted to? So every time he summons him, he will still have the same. Like, that is beyond broken, bro. That is
I just realized something. If like, I mean, it's a very big if, but if he does manage to somehow tame it in the Calling games, and as you said, if it does remember its previous adaptations, we may get to see an interaction where like an ancient sorcerer has faced Muhuraga before, and because it may be able to like just adapt to the sorcerer's techniques already.
That would be nutty. That would be crazy, bro. That would be crazy. But I think I agree. I agree with you. Like you said, it cemented what Megumi whole purpose and why he has such a big interest, and obviously whatever's going to come next with that plot line as well. So agreed, man.
Alright, next I got Choso versus Naoya, which is
your number 2.
Yeah. That's
okay.
So Choso is honestly probably like one of my favorite characters in the series to begin with.
Spinning.
So in this case, I think that this fight does have like a large reason. So you have Naoya, who has his motives to kill Megumi and become clan head. And then you have Yuta, who was ordered by the Jujutsu higher-ups to kill Yuji. So already we have the goals of the two people that are going to attack the other two. And as we can see their goals, it makes me interested to see how they'll achieve it or how the other two will prevent them from achieving their goals. As for the fights themselves, we get to see Yuta in action for the first time since the prologue, and I think it's a thing of if you've read the prologue before, you kind of know that Yuji genuinely has zero chance as it stands. But if you haven't, you still know that Yuta's kind of been hyped up, and it just makes you more excited to see what he actually can do. And I think he definitely lived up to that hype, because he pretty much just negged Itadori completely. And even, I'm pretty sure Sukuna was surprised at the fact that Yuta was able to kill Itadori and bring him back to life.
And break him back. Harness.
Technique, which like, technically he killed him, so like the elders knew that Yuji was dead, or they assumed he was dead, but he actually wasn't. On the side with Naoya versus Choso, the whole projection sorcery is still like low-key one of the most confusing fucking techniques.
I got you. Quick dive. Alright. So he runs 24 frames per second.
Yeah.
So when he starts running, let's say I'm looking at him, I have to follow the same laws of the 24 frames per second. If I fuck up one time, I end up freezing, and that's how he fucks you up. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So his whole thing is like based off of speed, which builds for like a pretty interesting dynamic between the two, fight-wise at least. Because we've seen with the blood manipulation, you can use it to like kind of like dope yourself up, I think it was.
Yeah.
This is for a speed boost. And as we've seen, like it's a pretty sizable speed boost. But seeing by the fact that Naoya was still able to like outspeed and injure Choso pretty badly, if I'm remembering correctly. But again, we got to see Choso's mastery over the blood technique, and we got to see Supernova, which was an insane technique, and it would have killed Naoya if Yuta wasn't there to heal him, which is pretty crazy, 100%. To be honest.
Yeah.
You have anything to say about the fight, or?
Yeah, no, that fight was cold, man. Listen, Choso, at that time, Naoya is just a dickhead, so I was really wanting him to get packed up. Oh my goodness, bro. When he came in, like, I'm going to kill them both. Who is this guy? Who gassed him? But listen, the fight choreography was really nice because you got the start where I remember is Itadori running from like cursed spirits, and then Choso comes in to kind of save him with the piercing blood. So it kind of like you said with the time of even though a lot of these fights, this one in specific, had a purpose to it, it started off with it being spontaneous, with Yuji just running, then Choso ends up teaming up with him, and then you get Naya and obviously Yuta pulling up. But yeah, I mean, the fact that we learned that now Yuta is one of three people, being Shoko and Sakuna, who can heal people with reverse curse technique, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Because Gojo has reverse curse technique, but he can't heal other people with it. So I think it just kind of highlighted a lot of why Gojo has so much faith into Yuta. And we got to see the supernova, which I think, like you said, is one of the craziest abilities that we've seen so far. I mean, it poisons them as well with his ability. So he's nutty, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Insane.
But yeah, man, I think it was a nice fight. And obviously, like, for a second, even though I knew Yuta wasn't going to kill Yuji, there was a little, you're like, whoa, is he actually trying to kill Yuji?
I was thinking, like, what the fuck is going to happen?
Bro, 100. I was baffed, man.
The twist was insane. That's literally the last thing I was thinking of. I'll be so raw. Is
100%. 100%. Nah, I agreed. I feel like, especially when that's animated, it's amazing.
It's gonna be insane.
Yeah, bro. Alright, honorable mentions. So you obviously said Megumi versus Reggie, so I won't talk too much about that. But I got Gojo versus Disaster Curses and Dagon versus the Jujutsu Sorcerers. I thought both fights. First, I'll talk about obviously Gojo versus Disaster Curses. The shit talking from Gojo was elite, man. Oh my days, nah, it was amazing. I think the craziest thing is, obviously, Gojo can probably do his domain expansion even quicker than the 0.2 seconds that he did in the fight against them. Obviously, he did that so he could stop the transfigured humans.
Yeah.
And I felt like it just showed the gap between how strong Gojo is compared to everyone else. I mean, the Disaster Curses are no easy joke, and they went on a rampage in Shibuya. But I feel like what it did narratively, with him obviously getting his one weakness with the fact that Limitless, obviously he perceives time quicker, so he ended up getting overwhelmed by seeing Gato in another body. Yeah. I felt it could potentially foreshadow things with Kenjaku and Gato. Do you think Gato will get his body back? I want to ask you that, because you saw that brief thing where he's like he
like hit his own like neck or something.
Yes,
reacting to
100. So what are you thinking? Do you think that is a plot line? Because I feel like there's no way Gege did it and didn't, like, he's not going to touch on it.
Because I feel like he's an author that doesn't really do stuff just for the sake of it. I feel like no matter how minuscule it is, it will play some part later on. And like we've seen like examples of this in the story. And I think something as crazy as that, it can't just be passed up on. I feel like it definitely has to be a plot point later on.
Completely agreed. And I think especially with, obviously, when we get to now the other fight, the Toji fight, you saw how Toji overwhelmed the other body with his heavenly restriction. I feel like it was just too many hints of this type of thing to potentially come in the future.
How like the body can overwrite the mind.
Exactly that. So man, I mean, what do you think about the Disaster Curses before I get to the Dagon fight? I thought that was it was crazy.
Oh, like you said, the shit talking was crazy. Like when he slammed Hanami into the wall and just said next.
I was like, all right. he's him.
Bro, that was he was him. Like, it was insane, man.
No cap.
And the whole 0.2 seconds, we've truly got to see like Gojo's mastery of domains, cursed energy, cursed techniques. I'm pretty sure seeing that and then seeing Mahito do the same thing, like triggering his domain for 0.2 seconds. Also, it was like very insane to see. I still think like his ability to learn and grow, actually just insane, man. But
that's why he had to die. He would have been too strong by the end. It's really and truly.
Yeah, actually, just wanted to say it. Yeah, that's what I want to say for that one.
Completely agreed. And last thing, because I feel like it's an underrated thing. Obviously, even though Jogo and Hanami they were getting slapped on, they did one thing which I think is interesting. It might be something that gets brought up later. Is they used domain amplification, which obviously negated the use of his infinity. So obviously the weakness to that is you can't use your own innate technique. But I feel like that is something that could potentially be maybe a buff for Yuji down in the future.
I was Yuji could use the same thing.
Bruv, oh god, like if Yuji could use domain amplification, it takes him to a whole new level. So
like he's got hands already.
Bruv, he's a bootleg Maki and Toji basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, bro, it'd be crazy. But yeah, man. Yeah. And then now, actually, the other honorable mention, Dagon versus the Jutsu Sorcerers.
That's fair, man.
We got, I think, listen, Nabito actually surprised me. He was putting in work. Him and Nanami, they were putting in work.
Yeah.
Bro. Projection Sorcery was actually, he was doing his thing, but obviously Dagon, his domain is kind of nutty. I think his aesthetically wise is probably one of the best one we've seen, and I can't wait to see that animated. But obviously he can keep sending endless Shinigami at them. So I feel as if it was obviously stopped with Megumi, and we got our first ever domain kind of what's it called, tug of war, with
Yeah,
Megumi using
Megumi and
his
Dagon, yeah.
and then Dagon using
complete
his.
them,
So I thought that was sick. And then we got to the peak moment where Toji came and
Toji's
rampaged, man.
entrance.
Oh man, that was
Oh,
mad.
dude.
That crazy, man.
Insane.
Yeah, bro. That's one of my highlight moments I want to see animated. When Toji appears from the barrier, that I
They're just
Whew.
descending into the. Oh, I can't lie.
it was cold, man. It was cold, man.
It's
He
good
knows how
idea,
to make
man.
good hundreds. And I feel like even choreography wise, that was one of the best fights choreography as
100%.
well.
Yeah,
bro.
100%.
It was crazy. But yeah, that's all my honorable mentions. What about you? You got any other you want to talk about?
So I have one, I guess maybe two honorable mentions. These both happen in the Kyoto student exchange, and these are the Hanami versus Todo and Yuji fight, and the Toge, Noritoshi and Megumi fight, also including Hanami. I'll talk about the first one real quick first. So at this point, I think the Mahito fight was the first 2v1, right?
Yes.
I feel like this fight was the one that started the trend of like there are no fair fights in Jujutsu Kaisen.
Jujutsu Kaisen,
It's just people jumping each other, right?
Yeah,
This
man.
2v1, I feel like the whole
2v1. It was like a 6v1, bro.
the boogie woogie clap,
Yes.
just like
yes.
these two just jump in, just teleport in.
Yeah, man.
And at points I was feeling bad for Hanami. Like he was lost in the sauce. He didn't know what was going on, bro. And like the whole fake out clap, bro. I know the choreography for that fight was insane as well. The whole team up. There's like one point I remember in particular. I think Hanami made this like tree
branch and then jumps in on the thing. Yeah, cold, man.
When the branch disappeared, they jumped off of each other like to avoid an attack. I know, like the whole like relationship between those two in the fight, it was just insane. And Hanami's like the concept of his abilities are really cool as well. So,
no, I agree. I think her ability has become underrated. Obviously, we didn't get to see her domain expansion because Gojo decided to stop it. Yeah, I mean, they would have got packed up. So I guess it's good. It's good you didn't. But I think like you said everything in it. The choreography was beautiful. Obviously, the anime extended a lot of it, and they made it look insane. Like that fight is one of the best. I think the moment you talked about with obviously Todo when they split apart when they tried to crash their fall from falling on the branch, it was cold, and then you got to see Yuji hit the black flashes. What was it, 3 in a row?
3 or 4, something crazy.
Yeah, man, and that was hype. I mean, every time he did it, you were just waiting for the other one. And I mean, Todo is the GOAT. So what can we really say, man? Exactly. It was a beautiful fight.
Yeah.
And you were saying the Toji and Noritoshi one as well with Hanami. Yeah, like you said, Hanami had it going. He got jumped by a lot of people. Because even Maki and Megumi had the team up against her as well.
That was insane as well.
100. They switched the tools weapons together. That was hard. It was hard, man. It was hard.
It's crazy. I think that's all I have to say about those two, to be honest.
Agreed.
Do you have any more honorable mentions, or do you want to just move on to the...
Nah, I think that's enough honorable mentions. And I've got number 1 for me, which will be Gojo versus Toady. So I'm assuming we got to say number 1. All right, yeah. Listen, all right, because I'm counting both of them, the rematch and the pre-rematch.
Yeah, the initial fight. Yeah.
The initial fight caught me so off guard. I was like, there's no way my man got stabbed straight away. I was like, what?
In
the chest.
Yeah.
And then he used blue, and then I'm like, oh, okay, Gojo's about to, do Gojo.
Yeah.
And then Toji starts doing all this like insects throwing around, and then he completely slaps him up, bro. Yeah. I remember the shock I had in my face. And then you had that cold scene with him walking away with Gojo on the ground. Yeah. I was like, he's him. Yeah. He is him. He is him. And then you get to the part where he pulls the blicky and shoots Rika. I was like, all right.
Yep.
That was when I first was like, JJK is cold, because I was like, this is no way.
It's got this regular, not regular, far from it, but this guy because then you just backing out a Glock, just up in it. It's crazy.
Like, dog, came out of nowhere. And then the way in which he slapped up Gato as well.
Oh, that was insane as well.
It was disrespectful.
Yeah,
Disrespectful.
he backed out the dragon bit, like literally.
Yeah, man.
That's all right.
It was crazy. So then when you get to obviously the rematch, and then you get where Gojo comes back, as that panel is still cold.
Yeah.
The yo, and then you see him with his like, cold. And listen, when Gojo started laughing and levitating, that's when I knew the match was a wrap. Like you could tell,
It
was a wrap, bruv. And yet, like I remember Toji asked him, "Is he high?" That shit was funny as hell, but like, yeah, it just showed obviously the dangers of reverse curse technique. And then he obviously ended up learning Hollow Purple and Reversal Red from that fight. And then he just, I mean, completely mollywopped Toji in that rematch. It wasn't really a rematch.
It wasn't fair.
It was crazy. But I think the most beautiful thing was the narrative, obviously implications. With well, actually, you'll touch on that. You're better in the thing. But before I get to that, I think obviously the ending when you get with Megumi, and you get to see how Megumi ended up getting inherited with Gojo and all that stuff. I thought it was a beautiful touch.
Yeah, it was really
and
nice.
I thought it was nicely done. But yeah, man. What do you want to say about this fight, obviously?
Cool. So earlier, I think I said narratively, the Mahito fight was the best one. Upon realizing we're talking about this fight, I think this fight, it nags it in terms of like narrative importance.
Yeah, so no, I hear it. It's my top two. Top two, 100%.
This is the most important fight. Well, yeah, most important fight, most important arc, I'd say, that really set the whole story of Jujutsu Kaisen into motion.
100%.
So obviously, prior to this, we had this assumption that Gojo was this invincible, like, unkillable figure, right? Like, I kind of just assumed it was like this the entire time, like, from his birth, which kind of was the case. But we can truly see how he was affected by this traumatic experience. It was in this moment that he was shown that, maybe power wasn't everything. After the loss of the plasma vessel, after the loss of essentially his best friend Geto, because this event spiraled his mental health downwards, and there was like the panel of Geto talking about like consumption for no reason, and it kind of like led him to become insane, which led to the events of the prologue in Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Again, the parallel between Gojo and Toady is by far my favorite one. Like, the sorcerer that was, acclaimed by all, then you have the one who was cursed by cursed energy, had none of it, and he was looked down on by everyone despite his strength. And you have these two characters that are so focused on power, and seeing them clash was like, it was really interesting to see. Then you have the whole parallel of when Toji entered the Dagon domain.
Yes.
It was the inverse of Gojo's ascension. It was Toji descending into the domain. And then to build on top of that, you have the whole Buddha story. Toji being the Monkey King, so to speak. Gojo being the not manifestation. What's the word?
It's supposed to be like some like inherited will of Buddha or something like that.
It's like, like he's the narrative representation of Buddha and enlightenment. And that just adds again like reading that just made me realize like Gege is goated. The way he like ties in like history, like Japanese history into the series.
100%.
That makes me want to know more about it, like as a whole. So yeah,
100%.
That's
no, I think just to build on that briefly, I think the lore aspects of JJK is extremely underrated, and especially why I'm gonna need my man to give me this high-end era flashback, because if he doesn't, it will be criminal. Because the potential.
I would take a whole like manga about the whole
100, bro. Like he can do a whole movie on Sakuna's origins, and I'm tuning in. Like I feel like the potential is there for 100%. And like you said with the narrative implication, it was. If not the Mahito one, this one is the most important fight that in JJK. Like everything has happened because of this. We got Tengen become more curse-like. You saw now Kenjaku got a curse spirit manipulation. Yeah, because he stopped he stopped the first ever fucking plasma vessel in 1,000 years. He managed to steal the Gojo and Six Eyes, so he won't get bodied by them again. It's like everything has gone perfectly towards Kenjaku, and it's just man. The fight, especially when this gets animated. I feel like this is when people are gonna respect, you know, JJK more because I
100%,
you know,
man.
100. Because this is when I feel like even just from the fights, the narrative step up is when Gege showed he was that guy before obviously Shibuya happened. So
because it was,
man.
I say it was a good series till this point, but this hidden inventory cemented it as like this series, like it's different, like it's fucking
100.
amazing, man.
Agreed, completely agreed. Yeah, man, I agree with that completely.
I think. I mean, you have anything else to say?
No, man. Yeah, that's good. That's cool. Oh, last thing. Inverting his spear of heaven. I'm happy it's destroyed. Beyond broken, because what? Because
bypassing curse techniques,
it's even more than just that. Because our clocks, when I was rereading, he can basically do it on the impact of where he does. So when he would use blue, he could use the heaven on the area so it would stop the effects. So that's why he was able to defend from so much of it and didn't die from the obviously red hits and everything. Because I was like, how the heck did he survive? But the reason he didn't obviously know the purple was because he never seen purple before. So he got jumped and it went too quick and killed him. So
damn.
Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
It's nutty, bruv. It's nutty. It's crazy. But yeah, that's the last thing I got to say.
Cool. I think that wraps it up. Drop your top 5 fights in the comments below, or if you have any like problems with our list, I guess. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. As always, check out Blzkn's channel. His link will be the first in the description.